If I put something like this in the best category, please tell me I'm wrong, because I need this to be like community enhanced. Obviously, my mind goes into this, but you guys are like backseating with this. Okay, that's how it always goes. I don't even know where to start with this. I have no idea where to start with this. So let's do this tier list. I think I'm gonna start with like the more OG schools. Actually, no. Let me just start with schools. I was gonna say like OG packs, like the order they were released. I think I'm gonna do it by school. I think that's the best way, and then I can even organize it in the YouTube video easier that way. And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure to follow the Twitch. And something else you guys may have noticed is that there's multiple variations of some spells with Spellmans. Nautilus Unleashed and Krampus both have their own Spellman paths. This should be pretty cool. So anyways, oh man, there's so many options. There's so many. I'm going to start off with, first of all, I'm going to put Burning Rampage and needs a buff. I think Burning Rampage is way too bad of a spell. It could even be put in situational, but I think that like the way enchanting works, and it's only 5 pips, you're not going to get the full enchant regardless on the final end. I think it's just bad. And not even is it situational, it's just not good. If you use it, you get triaged, you lose literally everything, unless you're actually playing for like a Rampage S'mores, but at that point, just use Fire Salamander S'mores. There's really no reason to. But it's just a needs a buff. It's just really, really bad. Next up, I'm going to put Brim in decent. I think it's okay of a spell. I don't think it's that good, you know? Is this PvP only? I'll be thinking of both, right? That's the way I usually think about things. Like, but most of these spells are awful in PvE. Most of them are awful, you know? Next up, though, I'm going to put Heffy in needs a nerf. This spell is way too broken. If you're using this in PvP, you can surge this and do like 1500 damage on the right person. It's just so good, okay? It's just too good of a spell. I do think it needs a nerf, but I also think I would put it in really good, but if I don't put this in needs a nerf, nothing else is going to go in needs a nerf. Next up, Nautilus Unleashed. The Steel 2 Blades is 100%, it's going to be in needs a nerf. It's probably one of the best lore spells, and also these other version of Nautilus, I'm going to put in really good. I don't think it's too overpowered. Obviously, it's insanely good, but also I think the other one is just, it needs a nerf. This one not too, it doesn't need a nerf, but it could use one. And then Krampus, I'm going to put 55 Krampus, and then 45 Krampus in really good. Actually, honestly, I think I'm just going to put both these in really good, because it's mantles. It's a RNG type element added to Wiz, okay? There's no reason for this to be decent, situational, or needs a buff. These are broken, okay? But it's also Krampus, so I like Krampus. I don't think it needs a nerf. No shot, homie. Winter Moon, I think, is going to be a really, really good spell. Actually, no, I'm going to say Winter Moon is a situational spell, because it's only good if your opponent doesn't stun block. Same thing with Snow Pig. In fact, I think Snow Pig is good. It just needs to be put in a very situational spot. I think Reindeer, both variants of Reindeer are probably, I'm going to put them in really good. Yeah, they're powerful, but they're not too powerful where it needs a nerf. And then both versions of, what is it, Celestial Intervention, they suck. They're awful. They're so bad. This is just perfect. And then Handsome Fomori needs a buff. It is so bad. Ice really has, like, really bad spells. Well, actually, I can't even say that, because they have Reindeer and Winter Moon, which are both good spells, but, like, they're just situational, you know? No Pig needs a buff, bro. Yeah, I'll admit that. I'll admit that. I think it's a situational spell, and it can be good now, but it does indeed need a buff. It desperately needs a buff. It's a good spell. It's a cool concept, but it just needs a buff. Moving on, let's do Storm next. Storm has... Oh, no, dude. Storm has some of the worst spells. They have some of the worst, but also some of the best, right? Catalan, I'm going to say, I think it's decent. I don't think it needs a buff because it's very powerful, but I think it's like an okay spell. Same thing with, what is this? The Thor Hammer. I think that's also pretty decent, but I don't think it needs a buff. I think on its own, it's a cool enough utility. I think, oh man. I'm going to put Berry Surprise in situational. I know it sucks and it could use a buff, but if it gets a buff, it's going to be broken. Berry Surprise is like borderline, like between good and like awful. So I think it's okay at situational. Maybe it could be decent. I'll give it decent. I think it's okay. And I'm going to give Catch of the Day needs a nerf. That's my personal thing. Hammer situational. True to the true. That's actually a really good idea. Candleland is bad. I know it is. I know, but I don't think it needs a buff. I don't think it needs a buff. Because if Catalan gets any type of buff, it's going to become meta. You know? If it gets an accuracy increase, it's going to be insanely powerful. If it gets a damage increase, it will also be insanely powerful. Actually, I wouldn't even say that, because there's too many other spells to counter it. If it gets any type of like accuracy buff, it's going to be too broken. I think Catch of the Day is very good, especially for low level, and it's okay in PvE. It's not the worst, but like I think it's just a really good spell. I'd give it more than decent because I think it's better than all of these spells, but I don't know. I think this is good. Let's move on. Let's do balance next. We know exactly where Loremaster is going. It belongs there. There's no other place Lore belongs. It needs a buff. It's so bad. It's not even like slightly usable. It is probably one of the worst lore spells in the game. It is just atrociously bad. It is so bad. Samurai is decent. Same thing. I think Ninja Piglets I'm actually going to put in really good. I think it's like okay for a spell. Actually, no, I'm going to put Samurai in needs a buff. And I'm going to put Ninja Piglets in decent. I think that makes a lot more sense. And then Savage Paw, I'm going to give really good. I think it's amazing. And then also Spiritual Tribunal, I think it's so bad. I'm going to actually give it needs a buff. Because I think if it was like a Hydra type spell where it hit all three, I think it'd be very powerful. But I think just 425 damage is just so bad for balance. Like, at that point, just use Ninja Piglets. Like, it's such a dumb spell. Like, it's so bad. Ooh. Ooh. Let's do Life next, because Life has a few interesting spells. They don't have, like, the best spells, but they also do have the best spells. So it's like, you know what I mean? Obviously, Sacred Charge is going to be needs a buff. It is just so bad. It can be good. I think even with the new Life Shad spell, it's also pretty decent, but I don't think it's that good at all. What is this? Goat Monk? It sucks. Needs a buff. So desperately bad. Camp Bandit needs a... It's situational. It's a bad spell, but it's also extremely situational. I'd put it in need a buff, but it's just situational to begin with. Pigsy is really good. Honestly, it's probably the best lore spell in the game that doesn't need a nerf. It is amazingly good. For PvE, for PvP, it could be a May cast. For Team PvP, it's amazing. It's just really good. It's just all around an amazing, amazing lore spell. Ratspin is also, I'm going to give it a really good spell, a really good rating, because Life doesn't have any other like low pip AoE, so I think it's just really good. I wouldn't even give it decent. I think it's good. You can use that as a minion killer in PvP too. It's just really good. And then Luminous Weaver, I personally just don't know if Luminous Weaver needs a nerf or not. I don't know if it's really good. I personally think it needs a nerf. Probably a copies nerf. I think that's it. I don't think I'd give it a damage nerf or utility nerf. Maybe like a 20 weakness. Yeah, I'm gonna put it needs a nerf. It needs a nerf. I don't think it's as good as these other three spells, but I think it needs a nerf. Luminous Weaver is like balances like what do you call it? What is it? Mana burn. That's like the connection that I have, kind of. So I feel like it's not inherently, I don't think it's a great spell. I don't think it's too powerful, but it's the fact that they can just spam it over and over again. It's 4 pips. The DPP on it is insanely high for life, and the utility on it is amazing as well. It's just a great spell. It is just an amazing, amazing spell. It does need a nerf. Anyways, next up is Death. Obviously Deer Knight is really good. I also think that Ship of Fools is a really good spell. Actually, I'm gonna put Deer Knight in decent. Ship of Fools is just great for PvE. It can also be good in PvP in some situations after the new update. So I think it's a really good spell. I don't think it needs a nerf or anything. I just think it's really good. Lord of Night, I think needs a buff. The damage on it is way too weak. The utility on it is honestly garbage. And the Headless Horseman is also, do I give it decent, or I'm gonna give it really good? It's really good at all levels of PvP, except for Max, honestly. And that's why it's just a really good spell. It's good for PvE, for PvP at, like, every level under, like, Max, basically. Oh, no, dude. Oh, Myth, bro. They got some weird spells. Ninja Pigs is obviously going to be a really good spell. I think Keeper is going to be decent. I think Grendel's is situational. I think it's a great spell, but it's only good depending on your strategy. I think Splash Squatch probably is a decent spell. It's okay for PvE. And the utility is like okay for PvP. I don't really know. I think it's just decent. I don't think it needs a buff or anything. I think it's just okay. And then Athena is going to be a really good spell. And that's it. That's the list completed.